Hey docs, there are many factors in health, and today we're talking about the factors that have to do with the politics and the health of the profession, because James and I are doing this particular podcast from the UK. As we sat down with a couple of leaders in London and then also audience members from our seminar, The Best Practices, we got a really good insight as to what's happening in the UK, and maybe most importantly for the listeners is the changes with the GCC. Now, the General Chiropractic Council has made rule changes for chiropractors doing care plans, fees, and finances. And I know that's got a lot of people alarmed in the UK, and the assumption is they can no longer do prepays. Well, I'm going to come back May 1st and 2nd to London and do a seminar at a Heathrow hotel and clear up all the ambiguity, give you all the X's and O's of how to legally and compliantly do a care plan if you're a UK doc. I'm going to be doing my Elements of Closing workshop May 1st and 2nd in London. And what I always do is I investigate the rule changes when they've just happened. I meet with the leadership, I talk to people involved in the politics, and I always make the tweaks and changes before I arrive so my students can sit back, take notes, and really run your practice like a paint-by-numbers system. Meaning it's all laid out, you just follow the instructions. I've done the hard work for you. However, what you'll see in this podcast is a lot of the listeners didn't even investigate it themselves. I don't practice in the UK. They do, and they didn't even investigate the rules. And then when they got confused, for those that looked into it, they just stopped, assumed they couldn't do care plans. Now, the rules have changed. The evidence that we provide at the Best Practice Seminar, what James and I talk about on this podcast, if you're a UK chiropractor, you'd be crazy to not join us May 1st and 2nd, because I will spell out everything as it needs to go in your practice to keep you legal compliant and increase patient results while we simultaneously increase your profits. All of this is to say, I'm coming back to London May 1st and 2nd to do my Elements of Closing workshop. You can find more details at levelupmentoring.rocks. But James and I sit down with Ross McDonald as our first member at the mic for this podcast, and we talk about the Scotland College of Chiropractic. We shift into some of the political landscape. We talk a lot about the UCA, and then we get into some heartfelt stories of members in the audience who are suffering from their own health crisis, their own diagnosis. And James does a brilliant job of talking them through it. All of this is to say, we've got a lot going on in this episode, from politics to school to graduating more chiropractors, personal health issues, general health questions. We got it all. It's a loaded episode because, as we know, the adjustment is loaded. There's many factors in health. We always default to the fact that the X factor, it's the Chiro Factor. You're in for a treat. This episode's loaded. Put your seatbelts on and please join me May 1st and 2nd. I will see you there live and in person. But this, ladies and gentlemen, is a special edition of the Chiro Factor. Hey everyone, we are in the UK doing our Best Practices Seminar. And what's been really fun is we just got done with day one teaching. We got a phenomenal group of chiropractors. Let me hear if you're here in the person and in the flesh. So as we were discussing today, there's many factors in health. And as we know, the X factor, oftentimes, it's the Chiro Factor. And what we're going to do today is sit down and talk to some important people shaping chiropractic here in Europe. We're going to get some questions from practicing chiropractors in Europe and kind of all throughout the continent, because each place we go, we see similarities. We see obviously some differences. But the more we look at it, the more similar we all are within this profession. And today we are sitting down with our first guest, the principal of the Scotland College of Chiropractic, a good friend of James and ours, Dr. Ross McDonald. So first one to the mic is always the hot mic. So Ross, thanks for being here, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Brad and James. Always good to be next to you both. I think the last time was at the rugby. I think the last time we were, all three of us were together. So
I was a little
Scotland
under the weather,
versus Ireland.
Yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't a good result.
We won't talk about who won.
This year.
So Ross started the Scotland College of Chiropractic and has really done it with blood, sweat, and tears. You have a phenomenal board. There's been a number of people who've stepped up and helped out, but let's just call it what it is. You've been the spearhead of this and really offering different options for chiropractic education within the UK. It's not the only option, but it is certainly something that you've been working on for the last 20 years. And I've been in chiropractic circles where people said he's crazy, he's nuts, it's never going to get done. And if there's one thing I would say about Ross McDonald is the guy is persistent, and he's just stayed on it for 20 freaking years. So if you wouldn't mind, audience, this guy is a legend by any stretch, by any definition. He's a dear friend, but he's just done some amazing things. Before we even jump into it, just the sacrifices he's made, the donation of time and energy from his family, his children. If you wouldn't mind, just give this guy some love. He's pretty So number one, I just kind of want to get an update on what's new at the school, what's coming up, what are the wins that you've had, and then any questions that kind of come out of it. I'm going to have James just ask, because really the direction you're taking those students in particular, it's nothing short of amazing.
So I think, we've been really blessed, Brad, with all our support. We do have a phenomenal board. We identified people who could bring different skill sets to the board. And then what we did was we then went out and looked at people who could then support us delivering on the vision. So the delivering on the vision was that ultimately we want to create and educate and empower chiropractors to be able to take their skills out into their communities and change humanity through the power of the chiropractic adjustment. So if we look at what we started off with a very simple concept of how do we want to see our chiropractic graduates? What would be employable? And me, I'm still in practice. I did 5 hours in practice this morning. So if I'm looking to employ a chiropractic graduate, what skill sets, what do I need them to be able to do? I need them to have a certainty in their chiropractic philosophy. And I think we can get kind of too clogged up in what is chiropractic philosophy. Everybody in this room has a chiropractic philosophy. They have a philosophy of chiropractic. They have a philosophy of healthcare. And it's based on the evidence that they've accrued over their practice years, seminars, etc., the people they hang out with. But what we really noticed was that our skill set, our specificity in our adjustment was diminishing greatly. So I wanted to teach chiropractors who could have the certainty in what they were delivering through the power of the adjustment, so actually delivering that adjustment. And I also wanted them to be aware of the contemporary science of chiropractic that supports how they deliver that communication with their patients. And that's why, coming to these types of seminars, we've got some of our students here today, coming to these types of seminars is really important for them to start being exposed to that clinical evidence and that evidence base that supports what they see in practice. Because actually, chiropractic over the years, we've been pretty lazy, really. We don't write up what we see in practice. And because it's not written down, it's like anybody taking notes. If it's not written down, it hasn't happened. But we see these things happening in our practice, particularly with those patients who have been under care for a long, long time. Believe it or not, I'm 30 years in practice this year. And those patients I've been adjusting for 30 years, they have had phenomenal changes in their overall health. But we don't write that down. We see occasional papers that you're presenting, James, and talking about that, but there's not enough of that out there. So we want to encourage and support our chiropractors, support our new graduates to come out and have that certainty in actually what they're delivering is actually going to make a difference to these patients. And that's really where it started. So where we are now, obviously we've got different kind of parts to that project. We've got 3 cohorts of students. So our third year students have just done the junior clinical entrance exam. So they will be going into our junior clinic and starting to take care of fellow students, staff, family and friends. We're obviously recruiting for our 4th cohort of students. As I keep saying to my team, every day is a first day. So Monday is our first day of ever teaching semester 2 of year 3. So every day is a new day for us until we get to 18 months time when we're kind of going through that full cycle. So there are challenges, there are things that we meet along the way that we maybe not met before, but that's where everybody has to pull together, and we're never going to get everything right all the time. We're going to try our best to do it, but we're never going to get everything right all the time. But as we start to put these things in place and start to see the results of our students developing their knowledge, developing the skills, developing their certainty, and then getting the results as they go into junior clinic, then that's where we want to take this. If I look at, some people say to me, why do you start this project? It's a crazy project, and it is a crazy project. But really, I started it for a couple of reasons. The first thing, purely selfishly, I was struggling to get associates to come and work in the practice, and somebody could come and take over my practice if I was away. So that was, from a purely selfish point of view, let's start a school so I can get associates.
That's like the 1%.
Exactly.
Let's get on to the other 99%.
Exactly. And then, you then start looking at, my 3 kids are phenomenal athletes. They have been adjusted since birth, or since they were in Beck. But not one of them wants to be a chiropractor at the moment. So who's going to take care of them and their kids and their kids' kids, if Beck and I aren't around to adjust them. So, we need to be empowering our next generation of chiropractors to be able to go out and do the things that we've been saying on our tin for 130 years, or I've been saying for 30 years. And it's the only way we're going to go out and change that and change those conversations about health is if we're certain in what we're delivering ourselves. So we've got to empower and create that self-belief, self-confidence and belief in chiropractic too. So that's really important for me too, that they have that certainty.
And that's a nutshell version of the last 20 years of what you've been doing, right? Up in Scotland, the Americans would call it Edinburgh. It's Edinburgh. Right, Edinburgh, Scotland, and the truth is, the people that you have working around you are huge, but also the initial class. I mean, it's amazing to me how many second-generation chiropractors are coming through the school, meaning their parents are chiropractors and said we could send them somewhere else, but instead we're going to send them here. And it's a really cool inaugural class. And then the subsequent classes as well, just, really many choices and people are choosing to send their students there based on that vision.
I think one of the things, obviously, with doing the Edinburgh lectures over the years, one of the things is we've kind of developed these friendships. That's how we met, and yourself as well. And you develop those friendships and you develop those linkages and you develop that kind of trust. You know what it's like in chiropractic. You develop those friendships that you think, I can really trust that person. They can deliver on what I need them to do, but also you trust them as a friend, a colleague and a confidant as well. And when you get, you know what it's like yourselves, you get to that point in your career where that number of people starts to reduce because, people talk about you, people abuse your name, people do all these other things behind the scenes when they don't actually really know you, they don't know who you are or what you're doing. So developing those friendships and trusting kind of relationships allows you then to go out and be confident in the people you're bringing in for your team. Yeah. So I get accused of only employing my friends at the college. It's not strictly true, but it's people I trust that have the knowledge and the skill set to come in. So we've got a Gonstead diplomat who we fly in from the Netherlands every week to teach Gonstead. There's only 2 Gonstead diplomats in Europe, so we have one of them teaching at our school. We've got Rob Sanford, who's in this room. He comes up every week to teach technique. So we get people who are great in their skill set, but also buy into the project, who you can trust to deliver on what you're doing, so you can then let them run and you don't have to micromanage them as well, which makes it a whole lot easier.
And just to point out, and I want you to share a little bit, James, too, your experience and your interaction with the students, because people need to know you've been donating your time to teach the students. What we're going through today at the Best Practice Seminar is a lot of the science and research, the evidence-based, that dictates what guidelines and recommendations we can make. And what's really cool is so many people at this seminar would say, I wish I got this in school. Now, through Ross and your friendship, he's had you do this by Zoom. So these Scotland College students are getting what many of the docs here. Put your hands together if you guys would agree that's a true statement. You wish you learned some of the stuff that James went over today. You wish you learned it in school. Can I hear you by putting your hands together? So maybe speak to your interaction with the students a little bit.
I actually, I'm quite impressed by your group, to be honest. I will say it's not my first Zoom experience, but I find that they're engaged, and you can tell they're sort of curious, but also excited. And they, I actually would say that I've really enjoyed it, and it's very difficult to make a connection over Zoom, to be honest. But you start to start to know who's going to ask the question, and you kind of at the type of question they ask, you can sort of see where they're kind of slanted in chiropractic and stuff. But that's a big part of it for me, is that I've always, and Ross and I have probably had this conversation a lot of times, and you and I as well, Brad, which is that I find it, obviously I've made a very good life and living from teaching chiropractors things, but I've always been somewhat a little bit ashamed of our educational system that
some of the schools
these people, well, but also even the good ones aren't necessarily teaching the stuff that I've been teaching in a way that gives them that clinical certainty about what the evidence says, and how to create an evidence-based chiropractic, real, sort of adjustment-centric protocol, right? And so, it's like I feel like it's a nice way for me to be able to give back And I always pretend I'm going to charge Ross, but I never do. I think you email me saying, send me your banking details. I'm like, oh, yeah, whatever. But anyway.
So I'll take you to the next rugby
yeah,
match.
Yeah,
James,
exactly.
don't worry.
So, but I mean,
go and see Canada.
Ross talks about that trust. And was I at the first Edinburgh lecture? I can't remember.
You were,
I think
first
I was.
two, yeah.
And so, I trust Ross. Mm-hmm. And like, to be honest, there's not many people, I mean, like you, there's not many people that I would go, I want to be affiliated with that. I want to put my, be proud to be involved and, volunteer my time. And I would just say that I think, Ross, your what your goals are and what you want for your students is exactly I think what's been missing, which is really to say, listen, if they're not successful in practice, I failed. And that's ultimately it. Like, we can have all these outcomes that we measure along the way, but they're only valid if doing well in school means you're going to do well in practice. And until those two things are joined, then the whole process is invalid. Yeah. And I think that what you're doing is going to make that real difference. And so, I trust you, and I've always admired your dedication and work ethic to it. And it's like. And we love rugby, so we got a lot in common. But I would not hesitate in any fashion to send a student there. That's for sure.
For sure. And I think to that point, it's very personal for Ross, in the sense that the students are successful, the people you surround yourself with, and so basically that's a very manicured situation in Scotland. Like, you've handpicked the people to be there to be successful in practice, and because it was so close to the vest to get this off the ground, the benefit is it's very much a hand selection of some of the best people in the profession that are participating and teaching these students. So the process is right, that success will follow. And
I think the other thing is as well is that it's really important is everybody we've got on the team buys into the vision, and the vision is we want to develop, world-class chiropractors who are successful in practice, but we also want to develop critical thinkers. I don't want, God forbid, if they were all clones of you and I, James,
Yeah, God help. God help us.
Imagine if they were all clones of us coming out. We want them to find their path, be able to find what centers them, how they can deliver on that promise, and have that certainty to be able to do it by being able to critically think, not just come out and just, rote learn and pass. Be able to think, understand, question, challenge, learn, discuss, all the things that we do in the bars after seminars, those conversations that we have. We want them to just start having those conversations as students and grow and develop through that. And if we do that, we've done our job.
Be able to answer their deep questions and deep doubts, right? Like, that's what's not done in our profession and in schools, is that our students are not leaving with the confidence that medical students leave with, or dental students, or physical therapy students, or occupational therapy students, right? There's a real void of confidence and certainty of the value that they offer. And I think that's the biggest gap between doing well in school and doing well in practice. And I think, that you're addressing that. And I think, we'll soon see, right? But
no, I think it's huge. But even you zooming in and going over the science and the research with the students and doing, and as only you can do it, you're beating this into their heads. They're in a classroom that we all just agreed we wished we had in school, and you're doing it via Zoom. There's no excuses going on at that school, and there's a lot of helped sweat and tears from people like yourself, Rob, Melissa Sanford. You've got Martin Harvey from across the pond helping out. Heidi's helping out. I mean, you've got some amazing people that you've assembled an all-star team. And just so everybody knows, we are going to have transcripts of this podcast in case you don't know what the hell Ross is saying.
I'll send you an email.
I can actually understand him right now, but I have to be honest, half the shit I agreed to at the bar, I don't know what the fuck you said. Like get a couple beers in him, I'm like, I'm watching his lips and I don't know what's coming out right now. But the truth is, it's on your mind 24/7. I really think that is what's been the engine behind it. Before we get you off the mic, what should I have asked you? What would you like to talk about? What do you think James and I should kind of given you an opportunity to discuss in front of the live group? One more thing would you like to add?
So I think that, as we talked just briefly next door, this was always about a chiropractic program being done by chiropractors for chiropractic. So it's about getting involved. I just happen to be the person that's been the driving force and the name above the door.
There we go.
But actually there's 1,000,001 people behind me pushing me forward and allowing me to get this done. So it's about getting people, if you resonate with the project, get involved. We need your time, getting that, recruiting students, promoting the college, teaching coming up, guest lecturing. We need your talent, do the same thing, clinic tutors, etc. And we also need your treasure. Because we're open doesn't mean to say we're flush with cash, and we've got, we need to still, we've not got a full 4-year cohort of students yet. Yeah. So even just that, we'll be in a better financial footing this time next year. But we do still need, for those, I got another £75,000 bill today for the final stage of the clinic project. So these things come in.
75,000.
Yeah, so we need these things.
That's like $1 million American pesos. Yeah, it's like.
So to be fair, I did also have one of my patients donate. I think she's now donated 205,000 in the last 6 weeks to the project.
Wow, fantastic.
So that's huge. That's what I wanted to hear. I love that vision. I love that I was a person to do it. It was like, but literally, has it been 20 years? When was the first Edinburgh Lectures?
Yeah, so I suppose first Edinburgh Lectures was Hamish was 6 months old, so he's 20 now, so 19 years past September it was.
19 years.
So there's this year's 21st Edinburgh Lecture.
Absolute total dedication to the cause, relentless for 19 plus years, 20 years. It's been amazing to see it and also to be a part of it. I think I've spoken at half the Edinburgh Lectures. We've had you come over to the States specifically to do fundraising events and have American docs donate money, and they don't have a dog in the fight, meaning they don't have any kids going to go to Scotland College, or they don't even have children and they're donating. Like, you're such an endearing person. You're such a warm person. You speak that into everything that you do. And yet, like most of my good friends, the only person better than you is your wife, Beck. You know what I mean? So like one hell of a combination. If you guys wouldn't mind, put your hands together for an absolute treasure in our profession, Dr. Ross McDonald, Scotland College Chiropractic Principal. And if I can get Melissa Sanford coming to the mic, put your hands together for Melissa. Let's make some noise. So as Melissa gets rigged in here, she is the executive director of the UCA, the United Chiropractic Association. I want to say it's close to 20 years that I've known you as well. I was kind of like 15 years maybe. I was a young buck coming over when UCA was just getting started, and you guys had an attack on the subluxation. It all blends together. It might have been 2 weeks ago. I don't really know. Talk me through this. How long has the UCA been in existence?
So 25 years. It was our 25th anniversary in September last year. I wasn't involved in the UCA in the beginning. The first couple of years I was busy having babies. And but yeah, I came on board 23 years ago. 23 years ago. Yeah, 23
So is it
years
safe
ago.
to say maybe it's been 20 years I've known you? The only reason I bring that up is because I'm trying to get an accurate timeline, which might have been 12, 14 years ago, that in the UK, they specifically had an attack on the word subluxation, only using it in historical reference. But I want to throw the details of that over to you, because that was a huge part of where the group is now. But how many members do you currently have?
Okay, so we have 1,297 members. I know that because I counted yesterday. Yeah. So it's pretty awesome.
Would you guys put your hands together? 1,297 members. That's from 0 And that was from zero and basically no funding, just an idea to say we need to represent a different voice in chiropractic, which is not the metapractic, but a different voice. And I don't want to define that.
Yeah, I think the initial group were just a group of chiropractors who were frustrated, I guess you would say, by some of essentially the politics and the direction that the profession was heading in. And so they got together and had a meeting and another meeting and another meeting, and the UCA was born. And when I came on board, I was told there were 186 members. There certainly were not 186 people paying.
But that's kind of how you run a practice. You just double the number.
Right, yeah.
And if you want to know the real number, optimistic division by 2, it's probably like 90, right? More or less, high volume.
Yeah, and it was disheveled. I mean, to be fair, they did a great job getting off the ground, but, we really, for a couple of years, the strategy was to bring some order, to get people paying, to start writing newsletters. That's how I started. I was just like, I'm just going to write to them every Friday. So I just started writing an email every Friday and trying to build a community. And that's...
Well, you've done a hell of a job.
Thank you.
Would you guys put your hands together? Like, no joke. Like. So just before we go any further on that, like, you are one of the most dynamic people in chiropractic. You've done so much for chiropractic. Your husband, we just mentioned a minute ago, is teaching at the Scotland College of Chiropractic. But I just kind of want to put a face to the name. And part of what we can do in this podcast is put a spotlight on people that are doing things behind the scenes. And that's why we wanted to have you and Ross first and foremost out of the shoot. I think you two have done more for chiropractic in the last decade here than any two other people that I can think of. And the truth is, you're the driving force behind the UCA. So last time I'll prompt the audience, but will you honestly just give her some crazy love right now? You deserve it. You deserve it. So you're writing newsletters every Friday.
So I'm writing newsletters on a Friday, and probably really bad typing because I didn't go to typing school. Taught myself how to use a computer, but back in those days. But yeah, that's really what we started doing, bringing some order. And the strategy was really, we need some money. So I ran that place on a shoestring for probably 10 years. I remember Rob and I would sit in the living room with the ironing board, right? We'd have a movie on, we'd have the ironing board out, and we used to fold the flyers to start mail outs to people, right?
Sounds like date night.
Right? Or date night was us making flyers and sending them out. Now, of course, you press a button and send an email, but that's really how we could connect with people, was by post. And I very early identified that we needed to start running events in order to connect with people, because there just weren't, there really weren't many events 20 years ago, to be honest. Okay. And we couldn't get into schools, so that was a no-go. And one of the early problems really was that the majority of our members were from overseas. So once they'd come and done their stint here, of course, they would go home. So we would build and we would exit, and we would build and we would exit. So the growth really had to come from the UK. So I started running events. I went to every single event that I possibly could for years and years and years and years, babies in tow, husband in tow, all the rest of it. And we slowly started building up a membership with UK members. And, the majority of our membership is from the UK now, so which was always our goal. And then we squirreled away a lot of money. I would say we're probably one of the richest associations in the world. We own our own building. We have a decent chunk of cash in the bank, and that's been deliberate, because when we need to hire lawyers or do any of those things for the good of the profession, we have money to do so.
I want to kind of hit pause right there. Like the foresight 25 years ago to start a group, you jumped in, helped them get organized. This is really a message, I think, for the listeners, is that if you set your mind to it and you stay dedicated to it, a small group of committed people
100%
will absolutely change the environment. And the environment we're talking about is chiropractic in the UK.
100%.
And the reason they have a war chest of money is they're ready to do battle at any time. The irony is, and the paradox that you can use in your practice, is that when you are prepared, you understand the objections, and you have a war chest to do it, all of a sudden, there's less fights going on. There's less battles, because they know you're ready for it. 100%. When you're ill-prepared, you're not ready, and you don't have the war chest of money, you're easy pickings. You guys are fortified at this point, and you're not fucking around.
And a really smart move that we did, which sort of happened by accident in a way, but I think it's been really, really successful. And most of the UK profession don't know about this. Even our own members don't know how valuable it is.
Please share it with them.
Is that in 2019, we decided to take a portion of our insurance. So we have medical malpractice, and you have disciplinary defense cover in every insurance policy, I guess, around the world. The disciplinary defense portion of your policy is to protect you from your regulator. So if you have if you have a case brought against you, and most people don't realize this, probably many people sitting in this room, the average case is around £35,000 to defend yourself, even if you've done absolutely nothing wrong, right? That's just legal fees. So that used to be an insurance product, but we found that insurers take a long time to respond when the case comes in. So sometimes you're not talking to a lawyer, or you've got any support for weeks. And for anyone who's ever had a complaint, it's a really stressful time. Even if you know in your heart you've done nothing wrong, it is still a really, really stressful time. So what we did in 2019 is we took that portion of our policy away from the insurers, and we developed what's called a disciplinary defense scheme. So we actually hire our own lawyers. So we have our own legal team team. Bankside Law were our legal team up until last year, when the fantastic John Williams, he was the head of that. He retired, and now two of the people actually that worked alongside him have developed their own firm called Chiro Law. Jonathan Goldring's our barrister, and Alex Lane is dual qualified, so she can advocate as well as being a solicitor. And so if the minute you get a complaint, you phone head office and you are speaking to a lawyer the same day.
That's so awesome.
And they will go into bat for you. They have a 97% success rate at the GCC because they know how the law works.
That is amazing.
They understand chiropractic.
Yeah.
I think Jonathan Goldring actually can talk about chiropractic and researching chiropractic better than most of the chiropractors in this room. He knows his stuff.
Yeah. Now, let's also talk about this, because I know there's been times where the UCA has donated large chunks of money to research.
Correct.
Can you kind of give us a little brag file of the good work you have done, who you've donated to, what some of the projects were?
So ASRF, we donate to every year. So £5 of every member's fees immediately just goes. That's one of the reasons I was totting up numbers yesterday.
So over 1,000, which £5 would be over £5,000 right away.
Yeah. So just goes automatically every year. And then not every year, but it depends on the project that we support. But the ASRF makes submissions to the UCA, and as a board, the board decide what they're going to fund. And so if a study takes a year, it might be every year that we give money, but if a study is 3 years, then it will be a chunk over that period of time. So we consistently have done that for, I don't know, maybe 15 years.
What's a ballpark guess that you've donated to ASRF
To
specifically?
ASRF, oh my gosh, I'd be really guessing maybe 150,000. I don't know. I'd have to tot it up.
That's 150,000 pounds, which is like a gazillion pesos in Australia.
Yeah, right. We also donate to Heidi Harbeck we've sponsored studies for her as well. We've had her come to speak, which that money sort of goes in the right direction. We've also donated money to the Scotland College. We're definitely behind the college. We want it to succeed. We want it to succeed for chiropractic and for chiropractors to have a place to send people.
I love it.
It is how it will grow.
Speaking of a place to send people, any UK docs who are listening that need to join the UCA because they haven't done it yet, where do they go to sign up if a UK doc is listening?
UnitedChiropractic.org on the website. Join now.
UnitedChiropractic.org, and they can join the best group in the UK.
100%.
You guys have bought a building. You've hired private barristers, basically lawyers, to defend your members. You've got a surplus of money. You're waiting if there's any problems. You have a 97% success rate with the GCC. You're donating to ASRF. You're donating to Heidi. Like, you've definitely got your house in order. And there's many people that have helped out. But if we had to pick one, James and I know who it is. It's Melissa Sanford.
Oh,
so
thank you.
we love
That's
you,
very
sister.
kind.
You're doing an awesome job.
Thank you.
One question I have for you. Wasn't there a crazy time when some guy reported like 500 chiropractors? And maybe I got the story wrong, but wasn't he drunk one night and just like...
Yeah, maybe. The Good Thinking Society. That would be probably what you're talking about. That was a mass website complaint, maybe like 10 years ago now.
It was. But it was like hundreds of chiropractors that were turned in.
Yeah. And some of them were from our association. A lot of them were for other associations. What I can tell you is that all of our members were found not guilty, not so much for other associations, purely because of the legal support they received.
I love it. So I just wanted to give case in point. Hundreds of docs in a night were turned in. I'm guessing it was a little too much gin. Somebody got online. But the truth is they were attacked by a group. Hundreds of chiropractors were turned in. And because of everything you just talked about and the setup that you had, 100% of your members were protected and got out. And that allows those docs to focus on helping patients and not be caught up in legal battles.
Are you the only association that actually defends its chiropractors?
Well, I can't speak for other associations.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Oh, she's well coached legally. That was a great,
that
was a great non-committal answer.
Exactly.
That was so good. I'll just be the crazy American.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, because one of the things I end up doing a lot is helping people who get attacked by basically their own chiropractic boards, right? And one of the great fears and the biggest stress is that even if you're right, you don't know how they're going to. Like, there's no obligation for them to, especially if you're not represented, there's no obligation for them to make a judgment which is based on the evidence, or really, like, very often it's based on their their opinion or their preference of how people should practice, and they're not always kind or honest or filled with integrity. And so, I just think that's such an incredible model. Having dealt with this for so long, all over the place, and none of these people that I know of, Melissa, have ever said, my lawyer is part of my association fee. I think that you are probably the first and only that's ever done that. And I think what an incredible value that is for your members. That's not that they may not need it, but what a value it is, because every loss that we have, our side, is precedent. It's like a lot of times it's the way that they're trying to get in there and change things in a way that's not based on evidence or integrity. It's just based on their certain viewpoint of how they think things should be done. So, every time you win that, it's a win for everybody around the globe. Honestly, it's an incredible idea. I didn't know that until today.
I think one of the other great things we do is we feel very passionate about pastoral care, and I speak to every single person that has a complaint. They come to me. I will spend as much time as you need on the phone. For some people, they don't want much. For others, it's every day for a year and a half.
Mother of 6 children.
Yeah, but I think
have members that call you every day.
I think I will also say I have no problem telling you when I think you've done the wrong thing. I have absolutely no problem doing that.
That's
and there
called
are
integrity.
people that are not necessarily. Well, some people do the wrong thing. Okay, let's be frank. But for some people, it's just that. Well, I didn't write the note because I went home earlier because I was going on holidays. I'm like, no, you need to write your notes. You need to write your notes. You need to read that book. It's called The Code of Conduct. Read the goddamn thing. Do not get on a Facebook group and start saying, Sally from, such and such told me that I can't do this anymore. Well, Sally may not have even read the book either. Read the book. Read the book and then come back and we'll have a chat.
I think the exact line was read the goddamn book.
Read the book. I may be saying something similar to my 14-year-old about her schoolwork right now, but anyway.
Know the rules of the game.
No,
if you're playing the game, you
gotta know the rules, right? Whether you're driving a car or you're going to work, there's a rule book.
Can I use this as an opportunity to shed some clarity for the UK docs? Are we okay to talk about some GCC changes? And
for sure.
Are we okay to talk about some of the discrepancies that Sally from down the street told me that I couldn't do more than 12 visits? Because I just heard that this weekend. Can you give me some honest truth? Because I know that's not accurate.
So here's what I will say is that everybody's practice is different, right? And one of the things we feel very strongly about in the UCA is whether you want to see 10 people in the front room of your house every week, do that.
That's
do
great.
that. Do that to the best of your ability. Or if you want to be up here with multi-docs and lots of moving parts, you go for your life. And there's mostly what's going on is in here. But read the book, do it well. If you are concerned about any of the changes that have come about as a result of the Code of Conduct, you need to read the rules, get out all your paperwork, take a good look at what's going on and see how you can make this work to match what's going on here. But that I can't sit here and tell you 12 visits, 36 visits, 48 visits, this many visits and this plan and that plan, you're going to be okay. Because ultimately it comes down to your recommendation. So if you've done a new client consult and you've done all your examinations and you've come up with your report of findings and you can justify them and you write an initial care plan, then you can sell that.
Love it.
And you
what you
reevaluate
can't
properly,
do,
right?
and reevaluate
very
properly.
key.
That's what it says in the code. The only change is that you cannot sell beyond your initial care plan. And your care plan should always be justified.
Yeah, of course.
Clinically justified. That's what we should be doing. What they are trying to stop, this is my opinion, not the UCA's opinion. I need to say that because sometimes I get in trouble.
So legally
this is
coached,
this
this is amazing.
This is my, speak to Harry Styles about my media training. Anyway, I'm going to see him in June. Just plug out there for Harry. Anyway, but I've totally lost my train of thought there.
Oh, Harry Styles.
I know he's my next husband, by the way. Did you
really?
know that? Yeah.
You can go beyond 12 visits. You can make your recommendations as long as you stick to your initial
As
recommendations.
long as you're sticking to your initial recommendations. That's what I was going to say. In my opinion, what I think they're trying to stop is somebody in a shopping mall or on the telephone or online saying, sign up to this chiropractor and you can buy 36 visits now for the price of 24. When the person hasn't even had an examination in your office, right? That is what they're trying to stop. And quite frankly, I think that's a good thing.
That's right. I love it. Now, just to be clear, they can recommend more than 12. They can do 36.
Absolutely. If you have somebody in front of you that you think needs 36 visits as their initial care plan, go for your life. Don't quote that at a GCC case, but go for your life if you can justify it and you're putting in every 12 visits an assessment and you're doing it properly, that's your recommendation. Yeah. But you've got to be able to justify it. You can't cookie cutter.
Here's how you'd avoid ever having a problem. Because these people, whatever they want to do at the GCC or whatever else, they don't have any evidence that how many visits a patient needs, and they especially don't have any evidence about a particular patient.
That's right.
So in other words, they could not say that no one needs this. You might not be able to say everyone needs this, but you're certainly, if you're showing and you're doing proper reevaluations and you're showing that there's progress, that a patient is
100%.
moving towards better health, even if it's a small amount, if they're continuing to improve and you're documenting that, you will never have a problem.
100%.
Love it.
And let's face it, if I'm going to go to a chiropractor tomorrow and I've got a problem, I want to be making progress.
Of course you do.
Everybody in this room
That's right.
wants to make progress
That's
with their... So
You've been a huge resource for me because I've come over and taught the Elements workshop here for many years. And any country I'm teaching, and I always want a resource or an authority to say, how are we teaching this? Is this allowed? What's going on? And I've heard the rumblings from clients that said, oh, it's all changed. We can't do more. And I just said, well, I'm gonna read the book. I'm gonna look into it. I'm gonna talk to the authorities as they should do when they practice here, and I don't. But I always want to make sure we got the rules right. And basically, exactly what you're saying sounds like what we teach at best practices, which is like get the evidence, make your recommendations, do your re-exams. It's all very much sound clinical advice. It's nothing really to be afraid of. And when you know the facts, then the fear goes away.
100%. And listen, if you're taking care of people and you're listening to them, like really listening to them, like you're halfway there.
That's it. Yeah. So again, my resource when we do the Elements workshop, best practices, come over and speak at the UCA. Strongly encourage the listeners to go to a UCA event. They do 2 seminars, one in the spring, one in the fall. So one in March, one in October is your annual events. Mm-hmm. Get to these events. You're going to learn information like this. You're going to have resources like this. And when you join the UCA as a UK doc, you'll have 2 solicitors in-house that will help you and give you the information immediately. If you do have a problem, you jump on the phone. This is the work that Melissa set up. But my point in kind of wanting to bring you to the mic too is, James, you can chime in on this. Do you agree what Melissa and this group has done organizationally, financially, could be a model other groups maybe follow?
I think it's a model for other associations. I think it's a great model for chiropractors because what you've done, and I don't know how long, when I started, 20 years, I guess, or some, and so I've kind of seen this thing evolve and it's just probably I think it's the best association in the world, whatever measures you want to use, but whether it's financially, membership, the services you provide, which are all very important. But what you did was you decided that you were going to support and represent a certain type of chiropractic. It's hard to even believe that we have to say that in this day and age, that there's different kinds, but there are. That you were going to serve people rather than, you create a lot of resources for these people. And you stuck to your model, and it's attractive, and you didn't dilute it, and you didn't allow yourself to be intimidated away from it. Mm-hmm. And so you created an association that is exactly how these people should create a good practice.
That's right.
And so it's just like you just realize the attractiveness of what you have to offer, and you offered it, and people came running. And then what you did was you said, I want to produce a value for our members, right? It's not that the members, they're not doing you a favor. It's a win-win when people sign up for the UCA.
Oh,
and I think that's the model,
That
honestly.
is the model, yeah.
And I'm just blown away by this idea that you have this defense fund because, medical associations do that. dental associations, chiropractors is the only group that we eat our own young, right? We circle the wagons
sure.
and shoot in all the time.
And
it's
what
just
Melissa and this group
ridiculous.
has done is pulled fear out of the equation.
100%.
Totally.
As we try to do, right? Like
That's right.
the whole idea is that if the reason that what we talk about is that when you do these protocols or when you follow what the evidence says, you have no fear because people can't criticize you for following it. They might not like it. But if you're ethical and if you're basically not being crazy, and you're following the rules, there are no rules about how often you can see somebody. That's not a rule. That's clinical judgment. There are rules of whether or not you have to record it. There
Yes.
are rules about your notes. There are rules about having to do a re-exam.
Yes.
All those rules are reasonable.
Yeah.
What's not reasonable is telling you how often you need to see you should see a patient, and there are no rules for that. I promise you, there can't be, because it will not hold up to scrutiny. Right. So they'll bully you, they'll pretend there is, they'll push you in a direction, but there are no rules that override your clinical judgment. But make sure, as you say, you have that you have a reason of why you're seeing these people, and it's written.
Yeah. I think the other great thing we have alongside our disciplinary defence scheme is we have 4 board members who, is it 4? No, it's 3 now, who formulate something called the practice protection team. So if I've spoken to somebody on the telephone and it is a clinical matter, then I refer them to the practice protection team, and one of them will phone you within 24 to 48 hours to discuss through whatever it is that's going on for you clinically. And that's even if that's not, forget the complaint thing, that's just what's going on in everyday life in practice. So, we do really want to support our members. We know that a lot of you work alone. I feel very strongly about that. A lot of you work on your own and you don't have someone to bounce an idea off. Or, dare I say, you might be working with somebody who you don't align with, but for whatever reason you're stuck there, particularly for young graduates who might find themselves in a job where they don't feel supported.
So politically polished. It's amazing.
They need
so politically polished. You're in a situation, is what she's saying.
It happens.
Yep.
I spoke to a young lad at the end of last year who was in a bit of a situation and now has a GCC complaint against him made by his previous employer.
What a dick.
Talking about eat you young, we are definitely doing it in our profession. Not just our young, we're eating our old too. But and his association would not support him, and his insurance coverage will not support him. And so somebody told him to phone me. He phoned me. I talked him through. Our legal team is now supporting him. He's going to have to pay for it out of his pocket because his insurance won't cover him. Now, I won't mention who he belongs to, but there's not many to choose from. You guys can figure that out yourself.
And you know what the difference is that the UCA will never, ever try to deny the right of these other people to practice the way they want.
That's
No.
right.
Like, that's the fundamental difference, right?
But also,
Is that
like,
you're not out there attacking those people.
And don't get me wrong, this guy has made a bit of an error. Like, but we all make errors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most of them unintentionally, right? Not writing your note. You might get 2/3 down your note and you get distracted by something. Like, everyone in this room could not tell me they've got squeaky clean notes, right? We all make a little bit of an error of judgment at times.
Every room of chiropractors. That's true of all chiropractors.
Right.
Yeah.
But we should have the opportunity to go, yeah, I made a mistake and I'm going to clean it up, right? And then you clean it up and you learn from it. I think every complaint is a gift, actually, because it gets you to take a look at what you're doing in your office and clean it up.
The only complaint I would have about it in my experience, Melissa, and you can speak to this, is that there are these boards that have a slant and that they're more likely to pursue an innocuous, non-malintent complaint further on people who practice in a way that they don't like.
For sure.
Than they are, you know what I mean? So it's not fair. The system is not fair, and they don't apply the law, so to speak, equally.
Yeah.
And that's what I find most offensive. And I think, the more that you win these things and expose that, the less you'll see it.
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
Yeah.
So my understanding of the history of this is that basically the word subluxation was attacked here in the UK. My interpretation is the group got together and said, look, we need to form a group separate than what existed previously. We need to have this word. We need to have our vocabulary. From this small group came this really big idea. And yet it was like, how are we going to do this? You came into an organization that needed some cleanup, needed some structure. You put it behind. And where you've moved the marker is now, I think, a professional standard globally. 100%. How you're doing this is unequivocally changing what's happening here in the UK. And if I had to pick a person of the year, maybe a person of the decade within chiropractic, it would be you.
Thank you. It's
You've
very
done an
kind.
amazing job. So,
I can't say anything emotional about
Melissa Sanford is a mother of 6. She has husband Rob Sanford, who's a great chiropractor. He teaches at Scotland College, and she's done a world of good for the chiropractors, not just here, but around the globe. So, audience, if you would, please, let's turn it up for my person of the year, Melissa Sanford. All right, so you heard from one of the leaders in the UK, from Melissa Sanford. She's one of the people that I consult with, and there's many, to make sure that what I'm teaching is pinpoint accurate, completely detailed at my Elements workshop. Now, my Elements workshop, it's a 2-day live and in-person workshop. Yes, I cover some of the science and research James and I teach here in the podcast. We definitely do a double click on some of the most important studies that he and I just covered at Best Practices. So if you were at either of the Best Practices in London, your next logical step is join us for the Elements workshop. Not only do I tell you how to say it, what to say, where to lay out your plans, how to get better patient results care, the research articles that go with it, the studies that validate your wellness care. I'm going to do it in a way that's going to keep you out of trouble with the GCC. If there's any workshops coming up that could be pivotal for you this year, it is the Elements workshop. Now, I'll be coming back to Amsterdam in the Netherlands in late August to do the Elements workshop again. So if you can't join us May 1st and 2nd in London of 2026, then I will be in Amsterdam late August 2026, and I'll be in London to do my Speak to Attract Believers, how to do corporate talks that first weekend in September. The reason this is so critical is when I talk to the leadership, I talk to people in politics, I would remind you of something I learned from the late, great Jerry Clum. And Jerry Clum said, if you have a license, you are in politics. And what I want to do at this workshop is spell it out in exact detail, what you can do, what you should never do, and what is the gray area I would recommend staying away from. I want you sleeping well at night. I want patient outcomes to equal doctor income. We want you to be an ethical millionaire. If you like this podcast, you join us for the Best Practices. Get to the Elements of Closing workshop. It's going to be in London. And I will tell you this, the GCC changes. You need to look at it. You need to be smart about this. And I would not blow it off if I had a license in the UK. However, the fallacy is you cannot do care plans, and that's wrong. The fallacy is you can't prepay. That also is wrong. You can still do care plans. You can still prepay. And everything I will teach you will be compliant and legal and at the highest level of communication, so you get a higher percentage of people saying yes to your recommendations. And I'm going to tell you to bump your fees. Give yourself a raise so you can charge more while you're simultaneously signing up a higher percentage of people, because what's good for them should be good for you. Hey, I'll see you in London. If not, I'll be in Amsterdam late August. And I look forward to helping you more in your practice in a compliant and legal way based on the science and evidence James and I cover extensively here in this podcast, and again, in greater detail at the Best Practices Workshop. Now back to our episode. This is when it gets fun for me, because we start to do some personal journeys with people in the audience. And it's always fun to see who comes out of the shadows, out of the darkness when we do the live seminar, and who comes to the mic. We got some treats here and a couple tear jerkers as well. Garrett DeVries, we're going to bring you to the mic. One more time for Melissa. Come on now. All right. Garrett is here from the Netherlands. If you wouldn't mind what your takeaway has been so far, whether it's the seminar or the podcast, what has been something you want to share with our listeners as your takeaway, almost like reteach it, and then you can jump into your question.
Perfect.
Your name and where you practice.
I'm Chiro Factor from the Netherlands. First of all, feeling very humble to sit here after two such big giants of chiropractic being here and telling their stories, and also in between of you guys. The coolest things I've learned from Chiro Factor actually are, chiropractic care is so much superior to many or all forms of medical care, and it's dose dependent. Yeah, and when I'm busy, that's what you say. I start moving slower and reduce the volume.
When it gets busy, move slower.
Yeah. So I've done that over the last week, and I really enjoy it. And it works like a dream. So
It does. The idea is you get more intentional. The busier your practice gets, meaning if you're in like an hour and there's people stacking up and they're waiting, I actually move slower while I'm moving quicker. But the idea is it's more intentional so that people feel the attention while they're there, even though it could be busy. They feel that.
Because I'm normally quite high energetic, and then if I start adjusting, then if it gets busy, I get more. I make more noise, and now I did this, and that worked like a dream. So
I love it.
I wanted to commend you on
Good
that.
stuff. Good
So,
share.
and my share for this part of the seminar would be find it and grind it, baby.
When you're doing your touch and tell, find it and grind it. Firm till they squirm.
So
This is good.
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to acknowledge you guys for the amazing seminar you guys are putting up, for the knowledge you bring. Also but you bring more the practical application for it. So really loving it, and I would recommend everybody to come to this seminar and to follow those guys. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Put
Thank
your hands
you.
together. Get the breathe. We've got Marianne who's going to come to the mic. She's been a chiropractor for almost 30 years. Is that right?
Impossible.
I know. Put your hands together for Marianne. Let's do this.
I unplugged these.
This is no coincidence. Marianne's headphones have come unplugged. She's not a good listener.
Yeah.
But when you see in a minute, she's actually, all I see sitting there, she's actually phenomenal, articulate, energetic. Let us have it.
Thanks, guys, for having me. I didn't expect this. I've known you guys for a long time. And James, I remember seeing you when you first started speaking. And I'm just amazed that I'm sitting here with you and what you've been doing. And you say all the time that you know how to read the data. And I myself cannot read the data. It's really hard to read these scientific research. And so the profession we need you. We need people like you, and you're in it as well, doing it. And I just love listening to you because you're saying, don't trust me. Just read the data, ask questions. And, that has so much integrity with that. So,
And I would just add to that, he's one of one.
he's
Right? He's one of one.
Yeah.
Like he just does something that nobody else does within our profession. Deconstructs, explains the science, the research, the flaws, and the conclusions. Because a lot of times you can read something and then the conclusion's way off base. I'm like, how did they get there from here? Like, what is that? And I'll run it up the Chestnut flagpole, and I'm like, that's what I thought. But like with conviction that he does it. So I love it.
and you know how to ask the right questions too. Like you look at something and be like, well, hang on a second. What about that? Like that doesn't jive. So it's so valuable to have your brain, your eyes, your way of seeing it, because I don't see it at all. So thank you so much for providing that all on your website for almost no money, really.
And HOH.com and HOH.com.
Yeah, it's great, and with you as well, Brad. I
don't feel obligated by
I
any
can go
means. I just,
on and on and on
just
about
get right
you.
to the question after all that.
All right. So let's get on with it. So when you first started, James, you were talking about the genetics and how there's so much chronic disease now, and is it? You asked the question: Is it our genes? And so my question is about. Well, before the early 20th century, when the medical industry really started to develop with drugs and antibiotics and vaccines and surgeries, what were humans dying of? Like, what was going on if it wasn't chronic disease like obesity and diabetes and heart disease?
About 20 to 25% died of old age, and the rest died usually of trauma or an effect, maybe a deep infection from a broken, compound fracture. They got eaten by something. They died in war, basically trauma. And so, as you take away the accidental death, as you take away trauma, before chronic illness, then you basically people would die of old age. And so about 24% of hunter-gatherers approximately, I mean, it's not exact, but that's in the literature, eaten. And so, but what they weren't, none of them were dying of was, basically heart disease, cancer, diabetes, obesity. It didn't exist. And so they had very few choices in terms of food. What did they eat? I mean, they ate the Paleolithic sort of diet, right? Because that was their option. So they just didn't have a lot of other options. I'm not sure they had much more self-discipline. I don't think they needed it because they didn't have a lot of options. And so one of the things I call it the perfect storm, but one of the things that has happened is we now have literally PhD biochemists figuring out how to make foods that are addictive, that are absolutely horrific for children and teens and adults. Then we have marketing experts to market it. Then we have experts who know where to put it in the supermarket so you see it. Then we have an industry that is going to encourage, not discourage you from eating it or equate that to your chronic illness so that they can sell you a pill. I mean, the whole thing is diabolically evil, to be honest with you. But what is quite clear is that as the chronic, and by the way, when you say like early 20th century, remember that the vaccines didn't come out really until the mid 20th century, 60s really, to be honest, for the big vaccine programs. And as I said today, by the time that occurred, 95% of mortality was already gone for those childhood illnesses, obviously from sanitation and better emergency care. So yeah, I mean, I guess the answer is old age, and very few people get to old age now, not because of trauma. So the thing about chronic illness is it kills you slowly, for the most part. So you have time to reproduce. It doesn't really stop you from doing those things. Most people die of chronic illness in their 40s, it starts, and then 50s and 60s, right? They're sick for a long time, but it takes a long time to die from chronic illness. So there's no way to naturally select it out. Where if you're dying of trauma, the people who risk more, they don't pass on their genes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, or if there is a genetic illness, those people generally that's very harmful, those people aren't attractive mates. They just don't generally pass that on. Whereas you have chronic illness, and you have bad habits that are causing you to be sick, and very expensive in the system and devastating to your own life, and and a bad role model for your kids. Those things are not naturally selected out, because you can't naturally select out something that doesn't stop you from reproducing. Survival of the fittest is not the survival of the fittest or the strongest. It's survival of the fittest to pass the most DNA on. Mm-hmm. The most fit to mate. The ability to mate more is what really determines if you pass on your genome. And unfortunately, there's just these forces that are in nature that usually pick off the people who are sick or I don't even want to say sick. Let's just say the natural selection that can weed out really bad behaviors can't do that if those behaviors aren't quickly deadly. And so I don't know if that answers your questions, mm-hmm. but that's basically, and there is some pretty solid evidence about what hunter-gatherers died of, mm-hmm. and it wasn't chronic illness, it was trauma.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking that, so before the mid-20th century, I was thinking that chiropractic, it applies to, so let's say for the Spanish flu, like in 1918. Yep. There's history that shows documentation about patients going to chiropractic practices, mm-hmm. and I don't know how accurate this is, but mm-hmm. I had heard that the chiropractic patients who got adjusted, there were fewer dying than the ones that went to.
Yeah, I would just say that the documentation on that is difficult, mm-hmm. and so it's kind of like yeah. There's a lot of I can't comment on that in the sense that I can't validate it. Right. I could certainly. There's some reasons why that could make sense. For all kinds of reasons, but so even the Spanish flu, like if you look at the Spanish flu, like when the Spanish flu came after a world war, where people were starving and incredibly stressed out, and they lost their fathers, and they, you know, if you imagine a world under amazing stress, right? That's where the Spanish flu hit. Like, you don't hear of Spanish flu like sweeping its way through, you know, rural Africa, right, or Costa Rica or whatever. Like, it was definitely, you know, a very, you know, especially in the places that had, well, either they were under great duress and they were under, you know, they weren't getting a lot of food, like there was a lot of rationing, or they were in places where the cities were devastated. And, you know, literally you had squalor. You had no, you know, sanitation got really bad. It was an awful time. So if you understand how getting adjusted, I don't know if I'll have time this weekend, but if you look at the the cervical sympathetic axis and stuff, like there's a rationality to say, you know, if you're subluxated, could that impact via inflammation and via stress hormones your immune response? Absolutely, that's very biologically plausible. Do we have any actual solid evidence that, you know, there was a massive difference for people who went to a chiropractor? I haven't seen it, but I can't say it didn't exist, but I just can't comment on something that I can't. Were
you coached
validate.
by Melissa's solicitors? I can't comment evidence. You know, there is a correlation. This is really legally like.
Well, you know what it is that, and I remember being interviewed by Jerry Clum during COVID, right? And he interviewed me and Dan Murphy and Heidi Havoc. You know, and there was a lot of talk sort of behind the scenes with Jerry about me. About what I was willing to do, and I just said, listen, what we can't do is I always say this: we can't build a straw man which our enemies can burn easily. So never overpromise.
It'd be like Guy Fawkes Day all over again.
Yeah. So just don't say things that we don't need to make stuff up that we can't validate. You know what I mean? Because if we do, it makes us vulnerable to a criticism that hurts all of us.
Yeah, for sure.
And so my
makes
view,
it like an easy target,
right? And so my
Don't
view on it is
stupid
that,
shit that they can throw against
and
us.
I mean, you'll find, like, as you like, we'll go through this weekend. It's like, if you're like, well, I just couldn't sell chiropractic unless we solved the Spanish flu. I'm like, what the fuck, you know? Like, so there's so much stuff that is so amazing and so, you know, well, you know, easily sort of supported with evidence and biological plausibility, that what I always say is err on the side of caution.
Yeah.
Because we've got enough. We don't, like, I mean, it's like if you can learn what you're going to learn this weekend and feel like that's not enough for, you know, to have a great practice and convince people to receive chiropractic care, well, then you're in the wrong profession, in my opinion.
Here's what you said that I think this is one of our pint sessions, you know, having a cold beer and going through it. You're not making a sales pitch when you go through this. If you understand you're making a clinical recommendation,
correct,
then you take the sales out of it. And when you know the research and the evidence wholeheartedly, you're just making a recommendation, and we're convincing people that they need it for their own reasons, not because of our reasons, right? And so the opposite of that would be exaggerating the truth, stretching the information, leaving yourself vulnerable to where they can throw it against us. So make it,
and it lowers the a false claim harms all chiropractors and chiropractic and our reputation, and it allows our enemies, and there's lots of them, to criticize something, and they'll focus on that one stupid claim or that one stupid Facebook post or whatever, and then, you know, then what they do is it's guilt by association, and they try to explain put all chiropractors into that boat. And so I just say, stop giving them freaking ammunition.
right. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. That is Marianne. She's been practicing here in the UK for almost 30 years. She is an American. You can hear in the accent, but she has been one of the biggest, I would say, instigators of change in her community and changing the paradigm within patients in her practice. She just lives it. She does it. She exudes it 100%. So, Marianne, thanks for what you do here in the UK, and thanks for just being a cool-ass chiropractor.
And has not aged one iota.
Let's hear it from
in 20 years. Unbelievable.
We're going to do one more, and this is Michelle Brentwood, Essex. Is Michelle? All right, put your hands together. Let's hear it.
I'll
try.
Michelle had a question on autoimmune, so I'll let you share what's your one thing that you think people should know, or a soundbite you learned, either in the seminar or Chiropractor, and then I'll let you ask your question in your own words. Reading it sometimes isn't great.
Very much. So it's basically going back to the basics.
What is your last name?
Oh, my last name is Holcomb.
I couldn't read that in there, so I really appreciate you clearing that up. Okay, go for it.
So it's basically going back to the basics with basically what we all know, as in living a healthy lifestyle. It gives us the best possible kind of scope in life, and going through the medical route, it doesn't necessarily cure us, it just keeps us in that state. And it kind of leads me on to my question. So I have multiple sclerosis and I do take medication, but I also do live a healthy lifestyle. So I just wanted to hear what your thoughts are on that.
I don't know I don't know how much vitamin D you take, or some of the things that, cause multiple sclerosis, I'm not sure you're aware of the research on vitamin D, and that it really occurs very much in the Northern Hemisphere where there's less sunlight, and, I don't know how familiar you are with all that stuff, but.
How about just indulge us? This is a good conversation to jump into.
Yeah, so even people with MS who take enough vitamin D, which is free, you're talking 5,000 IUs a day minimal. But also the people who are vitamin D sufficient to start almost never get MS. It's not never, but it's rare. And so there's definitely, in the Northern Hemisphere countries, especially as you go north, like Scotland is certainly it would be more so than, even the south of France, right? There would be a big difference. So, there are those things, again, if you're eating a diet which is definitely not pro-inflammatory, and you're staying away from all those good things, so I'm sure you're probably doing
Trying
that.
to.
Yeah, of course.
Mostly.
And so, I don't know what medication you're on. So this is what I say to everybody about their medication, which is, I don't know your history, and so we could certainly talk about it if you like, but I would just say, why did you choose to go on the medication? Were you told that you have to? Were you told that it's going to stop you from getting worse? Were you told if you don't take this medication, you're going to have this horrible outcome? Then I would say, really, where did you read that? Can I have a copy?
I did get told exactly that.
Yeah, that's not uncommon, right? Because that's the modus operandi or whatever.
But that line is massive that you just said, and you've shared that for years. So for the listeners and yourself included, really, where's the copy?
Right, exactly.
Where'd you read that? Can I get a copy? As a chestnut line forever.
Yeah.
And so the question now becomes almost a to-do list for you,
right? If
that makes sense.
And I just do this, but if you want to send me whatever evidence that you get that this medication is absolutely necessary and is actually going to prevent you from getting worse, send me that study, and I'm happy to read it for you. And if it's legitimate, I'll tell you. Not all drugs are bad, just most. Honestly, not all drugs are bad, but most. And honestly, I'll tell you what.
There's a good laugh in the crowd. People went to college.
Yeah, I understand, right?
They get it.
Yeah.
And not all drugs are bad. They started laughing. I'm like, wait, there's more.
Yeah, exactly. But I'll give you an example, right? So I'll just share something with you. But recently, my mom had a stroke, and they saved her life. It was a miracle, right? I got a phone call. Well, I went I got there. She was getting into the ambulance, didn't recognize me. She had to be risked off into emergency. There was no point in me going because they had to take her back. I couldn't go with her, blah, blah, blah. She was in emergency. My mom was and they gave my mom this clot busting drug, right? Well, the MD called me and said, listen, this drug has she can bleed out if we give it to her. But if we don't, then she's probably going to be a vegetable. And I'm like, 100%, get her going. And it was early, it was just fluke that we got her in there so early, and literally my mom went from, not recognizing, no speech whatsoever. They gave her this drug. We went to see her that night. She still couldn't speak, honestly. And the next morning, and the guy's the neurologist is there, nice guy, really nice bedside manner, which is not always, and he was he's just honest. I don't know. I have no idea. This might be it, or it could keep getting better. Very often it takes hours for this clot to go, and if we can get rid of it, and because it's been so quick, she could gain back a lot of function. I went back the next morning. Mom was like, morning.
Wow.
The guy was even the neurologist was holy shit. But the next thing out of his mouth was you got to get her on a statin because it'll prevent stroke. And I'm like,
You almost had a friend in the medical field.
dude, I know. I was this close, right? I was this close. I mean, and what's interesting was he was like really, really quite honest about some of the other drugs, saying, you know what, don't, you know. But anyway, so he's basically like, and by the way, this was the first guy. The second guy was like absolutely on board, like, no, there's no data. But anyway, so this guy's like, got to get on the statins because, you know, if you don't have the statins, you're going to have another stroke. And this is really, and I'm like, and I know the literature, right, on this stuff. And I'm like, what do I do here, right? And I'm like, do I make my mom uncomfortable or do I just wait and say it after? So I'm like, the first thing I do always.
Oh, I didn't know if there's a third option, like throat punch him.
No, because this guy believed it, right? You could tell he was sincere and he believed it. And this is true a lot. Like they do believe it. They just don't know any better. This guy is no better at reading research than the last chiropractor who was up here who so eloquently said, I'm just not good at that. And I'm like, okay, perfect. So, but neither are they. They're not scientists. They're practitioners just like you. And so I was like, the first thing I always do in this situation is to say, maybe you're wrong. Maybe what you believe isn't accurate. So I went back immediately, did a little lit search, and literally the papers that they're talking about, reducing stroke, we're talking about, like, first of all, your chance of a second stroke are so low, right? You're like a couple percent. And then the absolute reduction in your chance of stroke by taking these statins, which have horrific adverse events, right? Yeah. Your chance of reducing that in an absolute basis are less than 1%. So less than 1 in 100 people who go on these statins for 5 years are going to prevent a second stroke. And by the way, only 2% of people have a second stroke. So if you did anyway. So what I did was I always come at this by saying, don't be arrogant. It's possible you're wrong. And just because you read something, 2 years ago doesn't mean to say there's nothing new, or maybe you misread it or misrepresented it or misinterpreted it. So I just went back and looked at it. So what I'm telling you is I've done this thousands of times where people have this information, which someone told them with absolute fervor. You are going to die if you don't do that. High blood pressure, your head's going to blow up with high blood pressure. You're going to blow out your eyes. You're going to have, you're going to go blind. You're going to have a stroke because of high blood pressure. Well, listen carefully. Like taking those medications, the absolute benefits on those things are so small you couldn't measure it. And the adverse effects are so miserable that your quality of life is so low you're talking like for statins to gain maybe 5 days on average over 5 years, right? Like this stuff is just incredible if you know how to read the literature. So what I would say to you is that, listen, like it's worth looking into.
Yeah.
Because if it's true, great. You got one of the rare good drugs that really have the benefits that they think they have. Awesome. If it's not giving you any horrible adverse, it's always a cost benefit. Maybe there's some horrible adverse effects and you're like, what might, so you got to be, in other words, there's no informed consent and you can't do a cost benefit analysis if you don't know what the real benefits are and you don't know what the real risks are. Amen. And so what I always do for everybody is I don't tell you what to do. I never would do that. But I would say to you is, let me tell you and explain to you what the actual chance of benefits are. Mm-hmm. What's the number needed to treat? How many people would have to take this drug for how long to get a benefit? And what would that benefit be in real life terms? And then I would say, and here's the adverse events, right? And so here's your chance of an adverse event. And so now you have this information, and whatever you choose, I support. And then would also say, doesn't matter what you choose, you still have to do the lifestyle to the best of your ability, right? And I could help you definitely with that, because on the drug or off the drug, you're going to be much healthier and have a much greater life if you live well,
100%.
If you eat, move, and think well. And sometimes there's people where the drug makes sense. There's a couple percent point, I would say. And then some it doesn't. But that's up to you. My job is to give you the information and interpret it for you in a way that your MD won't or can't, actually, for the most part. And they're told something by a pharmaceutical rep, and they go, but they told you opioids weren't addictive. They told you Vioxx was safe. They told you antidepressants are wonderful, and that you have
their credibility.
They have none. And also they're not experts in this field, right? They're not experts in literature and understanding the literature. They're experts in being told what to do, sending you for a test, and then prescribing something. Yeah. And so Does that give you the information you need? And so
That
what I'll
has,
tell
thank
you is
you.
if you email me privately and send me whatever you want me to look at, I'm happy to do that
That'd
for
be
you.
great.
And I would
Yeah,
not
thank
charge
you so
Here's
much.
the benefit of you coming to the mic. You now have Dr. Chestnut as a personal doctor, right? How cool is that?
That
to
is
fill out the
so
form and ask the
cool. Thank
questions?
you so much.
Yeah, so we're not done with you just yet. So here's the thing is,
see.
one of the words I'm going to have you take out is I'm trying to live a healthy lifestyle. Right?
I am.
Like Yoda said,
choosing.
do or do not. There is no try. So I want you to like recommit to living the healthy lifestyle, getting total clarity, working with James. Take him up on the offer. He does this for a lot of people and they don't follow up. But the ones that do are blown away by how much he cares. And he won't advertise that. He won't talk about it. But I know, being his close friend, he does this for a lot of people off the radar. He's not asking your drugs. He's not putting you on the spot by design. He's not making you feel uncomfortable. But if you're willing to share, you'll have a personal advocate who knows that vitamin D could be tied into this. And then my personal advice to you is this could be the greatest gift you have. Is this diagnosis of MS, because you're going to see the system in a different way once you go through it. And as Wayne Dyer taught me, it's not in your way, it's on your way. And so once you start having these conversations, dive deep, do the research yourself, look at the side effects of the medication you're taking, really commit to cleaning up your lifestyle. No assumptions that you're not, but like really doing this, you'll be an even better healer.
Yeah.
Because basically you will have healed yourself. And when you can speak with total authority and certainty, you'll have empathy for your patients. This is going to be a turning point for you tonight in your career. I 100% feel that. And so I think this is probably the reason we're here tonight, is just your health is going to be put on a different path. And for all of us sitting here and witnessing that, that's worth showing up for tonight. So I'm excited for you because now you've got Chestnut as your personal doc, right?
Yeah.
And when you sat down and when you said, I've been given the MS diagnosis, like I got the chills, I got choked up. That sucks, right? You've probably had some personal dread and some doubt yourself, like, shit,
Yeah,
I
for
got
sure.
this thing and it's heavy. Right. So lighten the burden, do this walk with him. And what I'm going to tell you is on the other side of it, you'll be one of the best chiropractors in the whole of UK.
And the healthiest. Don't
Absolutely.
forget.
Yeah, I want that.
So
Thank you.
I'll just say this because I'll say it to you, but I'm saying this to everybody. There's two things that you must do every time you get a diagnosis. One is, don't tell me the average. Is there anybody that's gone through this and lived a long, wonderful life with this diagnosis? What's the answer for MS?
Yes.
Yes.
100%. Is there anybody who's done that without the drugs? 100%. Am I going to drop dead instantly if I don't take these drugs?
No.
Absolutely not. Could I always choose to go back on later if I wanted to? Absolutely. But how will you ever know if you're involved in a system that never takes you off that drug and compares your life off the drug and the progression of your illness off the drug to compared to it? So how do you know? You only know one way, by trial and error.
Yeah.
Right? And that's going to be up to you because you're not going to get that sound advice otherwise. But you can always go back. You're under no acute danger. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So that allows you to relax and just go, I don't have to commit to anything forever. I'm just gonna start gathering some personal data for myself because the other system won't do that for you. So no problem. Lots of people have had the same diagnosis with wonderful lives. You're an outlier because you're going to be healthy. Most of these people are obese, diabetic, pro-inflamed, and have MS, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So as we wrap this up, I'm just going to say this. We've been sitting here for over an hour. Did you hear his tone, his tempo, his cadence just pick up? Did you hear James's volume pick up? Like his certainty just went up for the last hour. That was like the most certain. If you're a chiropractor listening to this, play that last 5 minutes back. Because the reality is that line of questioning, that line of thought, that level of certainty. And then what he did for you is he just made this safe and no stress, which is where healing has to come from. He didn't pressure you to make a decision. He said, you know what, people have come off that. Your life's not in danger. We can make these decisions. And then he brought his tone way down. I would listen to that last 5 minutes. That's what being a good doc is all about. And your next health talk, your health class from this day forwards is going to be about a conversation like this. So lean into that. And the truth is, that's going to be your personal story that you can share and help hundreds of patients for many, many years. We've had some old people sit down here at this podcast. Ross is old. Melissa's, she's not young, okay?
I'm not saying
you are the youngest one. I know. It got real quiet in here. Help me out, honey. Jeez, Louise. The truth is, you have many decades in front of you. You could be one of the strongest chiropractors in the UK because of this personal journey. So lean into it and do it. And that also highlights why we do this podcast, right? Not everybody's in this room. Not everybody can be here. But there's many variables in your health. And we know that the variables you can control, the things that you eat, the activities that you do, the movement patterns, and the thoughts that you think have a huge impact on your health. And the adjustment is part of that. So there's many variables. The X factor oftentimes is the chiropractic care, but we are never neglecting the other elements of healthcare. In fact, we're putting a spotlight on that because the definition of doctor is teacher. And that's why I think people listening to this podcast have better practices. They're more engaged. They're excited. This was definitely a UK-centric podcast by design. But yet your personal story at the end is going to make this a really special one for me because I would love to track this over the next few years and then get you back on the podcast and have you share nothing but a success story. Audience, if you would, put your hands together for some love and attention. Thank you for doing this. Thank you to Dr. James Chestnut.
Hey, Brad, I want to bring up Andrew Moore just for 2 minutes because I just want to recognize his dad.
You got it.
Andrew, you in here? Come on up, mate. Brad hugs for me. He's my surrogate hugger.
Andrew was in the neighborhood, right?
Sort of.
Sort of. Where are you from?
Sort of. I'm from Oakville, Ontario, which is just outside of Toronto.
We could tell from the accent.
Yes.
Welcome to the mic. Docs, if you wouldn't mind, put your hands together real quick.
Yeah. So, I've got a few questions and comments, but you know, so the connection here is that Andrew's dad, Brett Moore, who's an old time legend chiropractor in Ontario, who opened up his practice to me and my buddies when we were about to graduate to observe him. And I'm going to tell you a funny story in a minute. And you know, I've just seen your dad around, and he's just like a lifetime learner, and he's just done so much for the profession, and he's just like one of the good ones for sure.
Yeah,
and so when I found out your the last name Moore, I'm like, is that Moore? And Rick, he's like, yeah. So anyway, just tell just maybe explain how your dad and your family and the practice, whatever you feel.
Your dad's a gun. He's an absolute legend, and we're just not sure you're going to measure up. So
yeah.
No, not quite. No. Yeah, he is the second chiropractor. So
Speak to the mic.
Sorry, he's the second chiropractor. My grandfather was the first.
Oh, wow.
So he graduated in 57, and then my dad joined him in 82. And they've been.
Where'd your grandpa graduate from?
We all went to CMCC in Toronto.
Cool.
Now he graduated upper cervical back when they taught it, and that went away shortly thereafter that. But so it's always been an upper cervical focused practice. They were together for 35 years or so, and then I joined my dad in 2012, and he's still going full time. This is his 44th year. Wow. And,
how many kids did your dad have?
He had
dad
5.
Mom? 5, and you've got 4?
I got 4. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So can I tell a funny story?
You can.
Your dad, I think he'll be okay with it.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a good start.
Oh, it's a good one, man.
Oh, good.
So I often tell the story without names, but it's too late now.
Even better.
Yeah.
This is getting good.
So I was at CMCC when the big stroke scare came, right? And I did the same thing. I remember just people like freaking out, and I just say, hey, calm down, Chicken Little, right? Like, just look at the data. They're all freaking out, right? And they're like, oh, we should touch the neck. And I was just like, there's no data for that. Like, just calm down and just go by the data. Anyway, and then I wrote that article in JMPT that ended up 2004. But anyway, so everybody was kind of, it just got to people, right? And people were just kind of afraid to adjust too heavily or adjust the neck or whatever. So your dad's like, hey, come and observe me, right? Your dad's a Thompson guy.
Yeah.
Is he still?
No, sort of.
Sort of. Okay. So anyway, we had these Thompson, the ones that came up or whatever. And so your dad was busy, right? And so we go in, and he's practicing in this old kind of heritage house, and the rooms were there. So Rick and I, who if you call the office, it's still Rick Baxter, same guy, right? And because we opened up a practice together, and so we wanted to go do the observe. So we go in to see your dad, right? And your dad's busy, so he's like sort of like just go over there and sort of stay out of the way, but you can ask me questions later because it was his adjusting time. And so like your dad's adjusting, and your dad like adjusts, right? And he does a lot. At the time he was doing a lot of toggle, right? Toggle with the drop piece. And so basically this lady came in. I would say she was between 100 and 105. And bone density of 0.001, And your dad's busy, right? And he wasn't doing a lot of talking. And so this lady lies down, and your dad was so loved and so by his patients, right? But it was funny because when he adjusted. So this lady comes in and she's lying, and she knows how to get in the position. And so your dad comes out of this room, and he comes over here, and she's like, she starts to say something. He just goes, kaboom, right? And like
she's mid-sentence.
I was like, dude, find the head. We got to find her head. I don't know where it is, right? And then your dad just did a series of these on everybody, right? And at the end of it, I turned to Rick and I was like, we can't hurt anybody, right? We have no chance of hurting him because your dad was just so certain. Your dad was actually part of the asthma study, which a lot of people don't know.
I don't know that.
You didn't know that?
No.
Oh, your dad was one of the practitioners in the asthma study. And then what happened was, I don't know if your dad will remember this, but I came and critiqued the shit out of that asthma study because what they did in that asthma study was the placebo group got double thrust occiput, double thrust thoracics, and rolled over each side in the lumbars, but just don't cause a cavitation. But they were thrusted on, and they called that placebo group. And what happened afterwards was, this was published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 1996. And what happened was both groups got better than the medical group. But they said because the chiropractic group wasn't significantly better than the placebo group, that it had no effect.
So they rolled both sides of the lumbar and moved both occiputs.
And double thrust on the thoracics. And I said, how do you know if they cavitated? By the way, what evidence do you ever have anywhere that it's not the thrust but the cavitation that has the effect? And they're like, and then I said, also all of these kids got, had already been on inhalers and other stuff first, so they'd already been treated. They didn't get them raw, Anyway, there's a lot of, methodologically, there was a lot of problems with that study, right? And so I did a critique for it in one of the classrooms for like a couple hundred of the students. And this was my first year, right? But I just finished a master's degree. And so I remember one of the authors of the study was at the school. And he goes, I hear you were criticizing the study. And I said, yeah, listen, like, Junior, but the reason you publish is so that you can be critiqued. If your ego's involved in this, you're not a researcher. So calm down and let me explain to you what the methodological flaws are. And to his credit, he's like, oh, I thought you were just, one of these subluxation guys criticizing it because we didn't say chiropractic cured asthma or whatever. I'm like, no, your study couldn't answer that question because your placebo group was shit. So what you really found was that chiropractic and fake chiropractic is better than medicine, right? And he's like, oh, well, okay, I'm not, And so anyway, but then I remember, I think I was doing a seminar there and telling that story or whatever, and then your dad came up to me and said, I was in that study, and he goes, all my kids got better. Yeah. Ask him about it. Yeah. But anyway, I just want to, I appreciate you being here, flying all that way. Yeah. But, I'm not a hugger, but if I see your dad, I'm hugging him. He's just a great guy, man. He's just a great guy.
For sure. So we're in London. So we're in London. We have docs from Canada that have flown over. We have docs from California, from BC, British Columbia, Canada, that have flown over to the UK. This was definitely a UK-centric conversation by design, but there's docs here from many different countries. They've stayed late. This has been a long first day of the best practices. Tomorrow we're going to start at 8:30, okay? And we'll see everyone down in the bar in a little bit, just to answer questions, have some camaraderie, hang out. But there's many factors in health. We know the X factor oftentimes. It's the Chiro Factor. Keep adjusting, keep saving lives. We'll see you at the top. There's plenty of room up there. Cheers, everyone. Hey, everyone. James and I will not be doing a best practices workshop for the rest of 2026 in Europe. We are going to put that on hold and do some revamping and repackaging ourselves. I will be back May 1st and 2nd in London to do the Elements Workshop. I'll be in Amsterdam in the Netherlands late August, and then the following weekend, first weekend in September, I'll return to London to do my Corporate Health Talks workshop called Speak to Attract Believers. So I've got 3 more times that I'll be teaching in Europe. You can find information at levelupmentoring.rocks. levelupmentoring.rocks. It is not a .com because it rocks. And James and I will be posting some other dates for future seminars, probably in 2027 for the Best Practices Workshop. But I would tell you this podcast will keep you connected. And any of your positive comments, any of your shares are always appreciated. Let's get this word out to chiropractic students. Let's get out to other chiropractors. And if you're in the UK, join me May 1st and 2nd so I can show you how to legally stay up to date with the GCC changes and still be practicing with total confidence and getting your patients better. Hey, as we know, there's many factors in health. Oftentimes the X factor, it's the Chiro Factor. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.